Let there be light, and there was light. Okay, so I am Crimey Queen. If you are joining us for the first time, this is the channel where we have fun with words and numbers, numerology to be precise. Okay, so I just thought I would, before I move on, just read a little bit on the scriptures, just to try and clarify or get you to see the variation of the different gods in the scriptures. So I have spoken about there are 14 gods in the Bible, and we have the God of light. So basically, the first God we hear of is the God who moved, but it's really and perhaps not so much the God who moved there actually, because it's let's see. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved. Yes, so there's the God of movement. God moved upon the face of the waters. So God moved upon the face of Mother Eve. So there we are seeing. But I was looking at a documentary today, and it's like we see in the middle of the earth, for instance, how the heat causes the crystal, the waters crystallize in the core of the earth. And we could see basically, or in the waters, we see how the waters bubble up, or the vapor rises up. So we could see that it could be like an analogy of the Spirit of God moving upon the face of the deep, on the face of the waters. So basically, it's like a woman, like we often say. Of course, we know it's about it's really like now we know about impregnation is really via a man, but we also learn, or we could see that it does make sense that in the scriptures as well, because darkness is total, which is the word darkness in numerology equals 10, and even heaven too equals 10. So that is completion right there. It's male and female, and everything comes from the two polarities right there. So Mother Eve was the darkness, hence we use the word evening when it's getting dark. We don't say when the sun is rising that it is evening. No, we say when it's getting dark, it is evening. And so everything, or our thoughts, you could say, rise then, or when you are in the quietness of your space, of course, things come to the surface like everything else, or in the dark, things that are in the dark you don't see in the day, they come out at night. I think we're the only ones human who really go in the daytime, or go in our homes, or we call what we call home. Well, I shouldn't say we're the only thing, but all sorts of things come out in the night, is what I'm trying to say. So we have the God who called. Okay, we were talking about, sorry, I said the God who moved. And so it's whether we saw that as when it says, and God created the heaven and earth, we see that the word created is also the word reacted. It's important that we pay attention to that. Everything in the word create, like the word eat, is also there. The word et is there. The word read is there. So meaning that there was a word, the word was there. Hence in the scriptures of John it says in the beginning was the word. So the word read is also in the word created. Now we wouldn't think so, but this is really to tell us that this is not a new thing. It is a reaction to something that was. And of course something was, it also is as, because it has the word as in it. So you are making a reference as to what was and what is present as such. Was the case where we have become the result of an experiment. Okay. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And here we have now, there's where Mother Eve comes in with the third. This is number 3. So we see the first word Mother Eve utters in her spell because the word reed was there. The word reed is in created. So you can see that Mother Eve is really the word, because she's the one who speaks. Of course, as I continue to say, look at the movie Jungle Book. That's what the serpent is really talking and singing. And there's another thing with the word sing. It's really the word, my pen. The word sing is the word sign. S-I-N-G is S sign. S-I-G-N. They're the same thing. And that's what Mother Eve is about. So Mother Eve is also about the signs. So there she shows us she's about, this is why she says, let there be, I think it's Mother Eve who really says there, yes, make the great lights. Yes. Mother Eve says, and God said, let the lights be in the firmament of the heaven, and divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons, and for days and years. So basically, so they're there for signs, seasons, and days and years. Okay, so we can see that this is Mother Eve here, and I'm really wanting to emphasize those points that of the different gods. So I'm not going like categorically like on here, which I would love to, but I'm just trying to get to the word set, because there's the God who set, and because that's where Mother Eve is trying to get us to get ready to be in that setting. It just reminds me, well, perhaps because I was in the beauty parlor yesterday, and there's, you know, the ladies would set their hair in curlers. That's something. Because the serpent coils, it curls, and then you would so most women would have these curlers. They are called the old term, I don't know if they still call it like that, because I don't use those, but they're curlers. So they would set their hair in colors. Now the word hair also equals 9. So they would set their hair in colors. And that's what the serpent would set in colors, in curls. So those words seem, it's like those words were really well thought of, that the female would be able to associate with them and carry out the whole theme of Eve's attributes, basically. So the female would continue to, of course, carry the blame of sin, of the sin, because she was the one who caused Adam to sin. And so it would seem that every word has been strategically placed in our psyche in a way that we would behave accordingly, because your hair, oftentimes it is said, so a woman does her hair is her glory, or she would do her hair in a way that it attracts the male, and that is again buying into the story that Eve was the one who tempted Adam, because she set her hair in curls. Okay, so this is not all, this is just part of what we're discovering, because if we look very close, or perhaps not, we don't have to look very close, we will see that our whole conditioning has been to carry out this very essence of that which we have been taught. So it had to be self-prophesied in that way, or self-evident it would have to, our actions would have to mirror that which we have been taught. But that is expiring now. What we have been taught is expired. And Mother Eve is telling us, because it's like everything has a use by date, we could say. It's got an expiry date for this world of illusion that we live in. And whether it was to safeguard the user or the provider, it is what it is, that it has that expiry date. And now we have had this expiry date. It's like some people would say, okay, well, it's still good, I can eat it, I know it's still good, like teas nowadays, because they have been changing conditions of things, so the dry teas may still be okay, but it has an expiry date. But some people could feel free to still use it after a month of the expiry date or two, whatever it is. But what we have been conditioned, and this is, it's as if it gives us that time to really look at how we are choosing to use this time from the expiry date and getting into another use by, another term, another use by date, if you like, another cycle. So it's important that we really get ourselves ready for that time. So we are looking at the setting here. It wasn't, as I say, I'm just looking at different aspects of the different gods, just to remind ourselves of where we are heading to. Okay. So Mother Eve, of course, her first word I was saying was let, which equals 10. And that 10, the word let, L-E-T, which is 352. And when we add these together, that gives us 10. So 10 is where we know that the darkness on the face of the deep is Mother Eve. That was 10. Or heaven equals 10, hell equals 10. So all those things in the word created, mirror is 10. So mirror is actually telling us as well that there is a direct, it's a mirror, the illusion of whatever it is that we are seeing, it's taking on the same pattern. The word spirit is 10. So if we could see with the first word that Mother Eve uttered, it's 10. So we know that darkness and everything really comes from 10. That's why the Kabbalah use the 10 Sephirah or Sephirah. Well, I think it's actually 12, but anyway, it's not the subject that I have looked into with deep understanding. Of course, I have explored it, and it does. I know that it also shows up in the Psalm, the longest Psalm. I think it's Psalm 119 or so, where we have, and in that Psalm, actually, every stance, should I say, every how would we call it? There's like ta, va, mem, be, the different segments of the Psalms. They all have 8 verses. Each of those Psalms have 8 verses. Now, I think I did mention the Psalm 119, and I'm just remembering, would that be this is something, I've got to explore this. So it's Psalm 1, because I came across the 9:11. We have been doing a lot of that. It is 119. So it's like 9:11. It's the mirror aspect of 9:11 right there in the Psalm. And each of these names, like Teth, Yod, Zain, Shek, and Mem and Lamed and Ain. All of those are 8 verses. 8 verses to each of these. Now, how significant is this 8? Now, that is also in the Jewish Bible. Is it the Torah? The Torah. The Torah. It's also in there, and so this is the Psalm. This Psalm is really, so we are seeing that the number 8, which is where Mother Eve ate of the fruit of good and evil, the fruit, of course, which Mother Eve is getting us, is wanting us to come and understand the ingestation, the process. It's just like we have people teaching us about how the food gets digested from the tongue and into the gullet and so on, and down the large intestines, the small intestines, how the nutrition goes through the bloodstreams and so on. Mother Eve wants us to understand all how our behavior, our thinking, our thoughts and actions impacts on our progress or our life path into this 8th dimension. This is where we understand what temperatures we are going to apply, or is going to be appropriate for us to set our biological or spiritual clock with. What we are going to create, what sort of cake are we going to create. This is where Mother Eve is saying, let us make man in our image after our likeness. That is number 8. Now, that is the 8th letting. And just to ensure, this would be on which verse? I am smiling here because I remember the times when I used to be with my friend, and I used to think, I think we should open a church because we saw everything so different to what the other people used to see. And there I am now reading the scriptures as if I'm doing church. Okay, but I just thought I'd share that with you. Okay, so Mother Eve said on the verse, it's 20, and God said, let us make man. So this would be verse 26. 2 plus 6 is 8. So I want people to understand this Holy Bible, that the King James Version of the Holy Bible is a mathematical construct. It was written in a mathematical way, on a mathematical format. And of course, we know there is the spirit of sound mind, because the very Bible have taught us this as well, the spirit of sound mind. So it's not to say that it hasn't got another layer or layers of comprehension or assimilation, but we need to be mindful of those different aspects. Now, I think I'm getting something intuitively, that there is perhaps all the layers of the gods. So the scriptures, depending on what you are concentrating your mind on or your heart on, there would be something for the God of planting, for the God who made, they all have their language in there. That is what I am getting right here. They all have their language. Now, if we don't understand their language, there's another thing if we don't understand their language, we will be just doing things, thinking that we are speaking to the same God or the same spirit and so on. Now, there may be times that is not applicable anyway, that it could be so, but it's, for instance, there's another thing, another way of putting it. There's another way of putting it. So most people, this is where the word accent comes into play. So all Americans sound the same. Let's just put it this way. That is not to stereotype, but Americans have a certain accent. The British have a certain accent. The West Indian have a certain accent. Now, we can also, when we pay attention, we would also know that each West Indian country or island still have their own distinct accent. And even in the certain island, there are still people from the different districts have their own accent. So the accent is carrying a lot of the people's characteristics, their mannerism in it. And that's the same thing that has been with the gods. So we hear the word, we are using gods, and we think every time we hear gods, we are speaking of the same God in everything, or the same God is speaking to us all the time. Instead of really, this is listening to and having the dialogue necessary to be able to identify which God we are talking to. And that is why Mother Eve has left her signature with the S symbol, which is very clear. That is Mother Eve right there. Now, even if this were, as I say, written in a mathematical way, or written in a way that may seem like even the word Satan, like we say, people, now that's another thing Mother Eve has also told me, that we are not to mistake Satan and Lucifer as one and the same. They are different entities altogether. That is what Mother Eve says. And for it seemed like, I don't know, I haven't heard of anyone else come with this, but Satan and Lucifer are not the same spirit-wise. They have different vibrational frequencies. They vary in their attributes and contributions to mankind. Now, it is not to say, as I'm saying, Mother Eve is the orchestrator. You could say the mayor, or Mother Eve is the one who gave out the deed of sale or the contracts. But when you give out the contracts, you have to really, as long as they are not really broken, you want to honor it. And that's what Mother Eve has been doing. She has been honoring the contracts. Now the contracts have come to an end. Now she's saying, okay, behold, I have given you all fruit yielding tree, that which have its seed in it after its kind. Something to that effect. So that's why Mother Eve is now, it's like she's coming to the cycle where she's saying, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Now, it also says, in that, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Then we would have had Mother Eve's likeness in us. We would recognize that likeness, and of course in recognizing that likeness we would know what kind of man we are making, when it is said, and the other verse, and God made man in his own image and likeness. We would have understood that Mother Eve would be the one who's giving us everything. So everything for the contract that we would need, every blueprint or whatever would be in the contract. And even if we will the ones to want to add our names or our signature under it, like the other gods had did, the God who planted, the God who moved, the God who formed, the God who created, and the God who set, and so on. Even with all of that, I don't think that they are able to deny Mother Eve at all as the grand orchestrator. Because you have to make reference to the root of where you have been, and you cannot deny where you have been. So that's the thing with Mother Eve. Now, I'm trying to really recall where I was at with all of this, but again, the main point I want to make here, so I'm going to skip some of these, is that when we had the God, and God created man in his own image and likeness, in his own image of God. Okay, God created man in his own image. And then it says, in the image of God created he him. So there are two things that are mirroring each other right there. This is something we need to pay attention to. So this is the word, this from here, God created man in his own image. God created man in his own image. There's 7 words right here. And then it says, in the image of God created he. Created. So I'm believing there's another 7 here. Created. So basically there is his and there is him. But there we can see that it's the mirroring aspect happening right there. So it's like the God created her, and in the image of God created he him. So there is another, so there is like the 2 kinds of experiments going on here. We could say that 2 gods are inferred in this verse. Okay, and God created him, male and female. So, and created he them. This has been the verse, which is on 29, of course, 27, 2 plus 7 equals 9. So there is, it's so important that we pay attention to this. And as I said, although this is, I'm not doing the numerical value here, in the word created alone tells us that it's because created equals 11. So it's really double 1. And that in itself is already telling us that there were 2 of whatever was being done here. So created man. So it's like 2 man or men, we say men for plural, but 2 here in his image. So it's as if he done 2 in his image. Okay, and in the image of God, but which God is it? In the image of God created he. Now, who was doing that other part of created he them? Who was that other person in the image? Who is he that created them in God's image? Who is he? Because here it is said, in the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. So the he created male and female, and he created he, and he created them. And the first part is created man in that it would seem like an introduction. And if it was an introduction to all this in creation, here created man in his own image and likeness, in his own image, not likeness, in his own image. So basically, he would be very, we could say very, well, I was going to say complicated. Perhaps that's why we are so complicated in the sense, because there is the male, female, he and them. The word them equals 10. The word he equals 13. Yes, 8 plus 5, 13. The word male, I think it's 3. The word female, but what? Let's see, that's 5, 10. 13. So male is also 13. So it's really important that we understand who was this being written for, and why is it so in and out like this, as though it was the serpent style right here. So those are questions we really need to be asking ourselves. And then God blessed them, and God said, now God blessed them. That is the God, that's one of the gods who blessed. This is verse 28, 2 plus 8 is 10. This is where Mother Eve is also here now. And God bless them. This is why it also adds now, and God said unto them. So the God who bless, let us not be mistaken, is not the God who said unto them. So it's like you can imagine there's the scene, so to speak. There's a scenario going on, and God bless. And it's like telling you there's a conference on who, or the meeting, the grand meeting, and who's doing what. And God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and the fowl of the air, and over every living thing. Now the word every right there is Eve. Every time we hear the word every, Mother Eve is right there. Every living thing that moveth upon the earth. So who would have the autonomy, which reminds me of the word okay, who would have this right to say this sorry, this initial thing? Oh, and it's water. I'm going to have to conclude on this because I really need to get up and have some water. But do join me again. Thank you very much. Sorry for the abrupt ending on this.